On the closing gong there, live from the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, bringing to an end trading for day one this week, that's Monday, where President of the Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers did the honors of beating the gong to mark the organization's annual week. Business editor Effiong Ekop will join us in the course of the show for more incisive analysis on today's proceedings at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. But first, let me welcome you to Business Nigeria. I am Tululokpe Ogunjobi. Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria is optimistic that the Nigerian economy will maintain stability. That's if the current policy makes it sustained and properly maintained. Speaking at the bankers' dinner in Lagos, the Apex Bank governor spoke extensively also on the state of the Nigerian economy.
Monetary Policy Committee may begin to see strong justification for an easing of monetary policy, which may further accelerate economic recovery process through reduced interest rates. To sustain our recovery, the need is greater now than ever for a robust policy coordination between the key aspects of economic policy making space. In Nigeria, this will include fiscal, monetary, exchange, and trade policies, which must be targeted at protecting farmers and local manufacturers to boost agricultural output, support local companies, and enhance manufacturing and industrial capacities with a view to diversifying the economy away from oil and fossil fuels.
With a minimum or maximum of crude oil production capacity of 2.5 million barrels per day, Nigeria ranks as Africa's largest producer of oil and the sixth largest oil producing country in the world. The crash on the global oil market pushed one of the biggest economies in Africa into recession in 2016. However, intervention by government's relevant stakeholders in the energy sector and rally in the oil market drive the nation's economy got out of recession 1 year after. Oil accounts for about 90% of the country's revenue. That's in 2018's appropriation bill presented to the joint session of the National Assembly by President Muhammadu Buhari. More than 2 trillion naira revenue was projected to be accrued from crude oil revenue, crude oil alone. That's for next year, 2018. Well, an energy analyst, Marcel Anyanwu, joins me via Skype now to discuss more issues surrounding Nigeria's energy market. Marcel, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, let me start this way. Price of crude oil seems to be stable at the moment. We're even doing more than $60 per barrel. What's your impression? What are your expectations?
Okay, fine. Currently, the price of crude oil per barrel is hovering around $63 to $64 per barrel. The truth is, this is temporary. You know, there are indices that governs the pricing. And right now, we are all aware of what happened in America, which America is yet to recover the cleaning up of their oil production process. And secondly, we are quite aware of what is happening right now, the loggerhead between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So these are factors that are contributing to the edging up of crude oil price per barrel in the international market. But you know, these things are temporary, like I said. We are not a prophet of doom for anybody or any government to edge his or her projection economic-wise based on the current crude oil price. I don't think it's going to be sustainable. Looking at these indices, it's not going to be sustainable. That's a fact in the energy market, because these are a result of a fallout of all these things I just mentioned.
All right, indeed, but the projections, yes, they are there. What do you think? Because we are yet to diversify our economy in totality. So one way or the other, the proceeds from crude remains very, very important for a country like Nigeria and even Angola.
Yes, I agree with you. You know, the OPEC cartel and the agreement on the crude oil production cuts, which Nigeria, as it is exempted from these crude oil cuts. There is no guarantee that this exemption will continue in 2018. Looking at what we have and the 2018 budget, a budget of 8.62 trillion naira, pegged at $45 per barrel of crude oil, and 305 naira to $1, and the $2.3 million per day projection. You see, we are presently doing at about 1.9 million barrels per day. Mind you, 2018 is few weeks from now, and I've not seen anything in place that will ensure this sharp upward projection from 1.9 million barrels per day to 2.3 million barrels per day. So I don't see it realistic. I must be very sincere to you.
Maybe the stability which we witness at the moment in the Niger Delta region is responsible for that assumption, though they have also threatened that they might also resume hostility. But, you know, the federal government has tried as much as possible to actually calm the nerves of the Niger Delta Avengers and all of that. Maybe the stability is responsible for that projection.
Yes, stability, but this is stability we are seeing on paper. Okay, the boys are threatening that they are going to go back to the creek. And, you know, we have had such situation in the year past. Of course, crude oil price per barrel did about over $100. What did we do with these proceeds? This is the $1 million question one should ask. So it's not the first time we are hearing or we're seeing these rhetorics. Let's fix the facts on ground. So if we are doing projection based on the relatively achieved calmness in the Niger Delta and the stability too we have seen in the global market of crude oil price, I am yet to see a clear-cut government policy that will drive this diversification from crude oil-dependent economy to non-oil revenue-dependent economy. I'm yet to see that. So it's not time yet for us to rejoice. We are from the 2018 budget projection, we are expected to have over 63% of the estimated revenue coming from the non-oil sector. What are these non-oil sectors? That is the agriculture and the manufacturing. We are yet to see the clear-cut policy. So the economy is more like dependent on oil revenue. And the corruption in Nigeria, the lack of transparency in Nigeria, the lack of maintenance of oil infrastructures cannot guarantee a stable economy. So that's the facts on ground.
Marcus, getting very interesting now. You mentioned America, and it reminded me of the issue of shale oil, which is also a threat to crude oil. And also the introduction of electric cars and all of that. People are saying that very soon we'll even move away, and crude oil might even lose its, credibility or the usefulness. That's the word. I don't know if you agree with that. Some are saying that will take a long time.
No, I don't totally agree with that. You know, the use of electric cars is not something that is going to happen in 2018. It's not something that is going to happen in 2019. It takes time. It takes time for us to achieve that. It's going to take time. And America and the shale drilling, definitely shale drilling is very expensive. You know, it's very expensive process of production. But, you know, it's good too that we understand the diplomatic war that is going on in the crude oil market. And that is what resulted to the downward plunge of the price of crude oil per barrel in the internet. But now America is having challenges trying to wriggle out of what happened like 2 months ago, the natural occurrences that happened in America, and what is happening in Saudi. Yes, looking at it from the face value, like, okay, the price of crude oil is appreciated, but the question is this sustainable? No, it is not. No, it is not sustainable. So to benchmark our economy, to benchmark the project based on these indices we have seen, is not going to take us to the promised land as projected.
Taking us to the promised land. Marcos, let's also look at the infrastructure in the oil and gas sector. We still keep moving out crude, bringing in refined products, where we also invest lots of millions, Marcel, lots of millions of forex, and we also have challenges regarding that. Thank God for the little stability which we've seen. I want your views on that.
Yeah, sorry to cut you short. Sometime last week, the NNPC advertised on interested bidders, companies, to bid for what is called direct sales, direct purchase of crude oil. You know, the infrastructures on ground as it is today in this country cannot achieve what we are projecting. So it now takes us back to when you ship out crude oil, in return you bring in refined products. And the question any person can ask, what happened to the refineries we have in Nigeria? And of course, none of the refineries in this country is working up to optimal capacity utilization. So how can we now thrive on this? So I don't see the infrastructures are not fully into play to make sure that what we are expected to achieve in our crude oil business as a nation is realistic.
Because if we stay in country, use local content, use our own infrastructure, it will reduce this capital flight which we experience, and you know, this foreign exchange volatility won't be a problem. Now, Marcel, where do we go from here? We still have this dependence on oil and gas. Where do we go? What can be done? It can be done overnight, and you also agree with me.
It cannot be done overnight. I agree with you.
Yeah. So what do we really need to do to put our oil sector right in this country?
What we need to do is to ensure speedy passage of the Nigerian oil and gas bill. The governance bill has been passed.
Yeah, that's the petroleum industry bill.
Yeah, petroleum industry bill has been, the governance aspect of it has been respected. We're still looking at the physical bill, the host community bill, and the infrastructural bill. Until this Nigerian oil and gas development bill is put into place, definitely we keep hovering around the same circle, year in, year out. The corruption that is prevalent in the oil business will continue, and the economy will continue to suffer.
But indeed,
what am I saying is to unbundle NNPC to make it a business-driven sector. There will now begin to realize fully the potentials of the oil business in Nigeria.
Indeed, Marcel, before I let you go, the petroleum industry bill, we are all aware, like you said, the governance aspect has been passed. Industry experts, why do we have this delay? I've identified this delay, that's one. And two, why do we, the issue of interest comes in. The international oil companies are being protected. The host communities have their issues. So how early do you think we can get this law passed to actually activate and industrialize the sector?
Okay, my take on that is it. We really have to be very, very careful this time around, the people we elect as our leaders. What has kept that bill up to this very moment is the issue of corruption, vested interest in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. That has kept that particular bill from being implemented, being passed into law. And I will tell you this, we're aware of the cabotage regime in the maritime sector. Up to this very moment, we've not been able to realize the full potentials of that regime. Reason is corruption. And that is what is happening in the petroleum industry bill.
Marcel Anyanwu, energy analyst, I must thank you for sharing your views with us on Business Nigeria with regards to the oil and gas market.
Thank you very much.
Well, the discussion continues. Well, that'll be after this break. And also, don't forget, the stock market too will be joining with ECOP Live. Stay with us. It's still Business Nigeria. We'll be right back. Glad to have you back. Now, we're still waiting for signals directly from the Nigerian Stock Exchange, but as soon as we get that, we'll be linking up with Effiong Eco. But before then, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Oscar Onyema, said the Truck Transit Parks Dry Ports project can be executed through private sector funding. He said that the financial participation of the private sector in building infrastructure can take a number of forms, including public-private partnership and full privatization. Onyema assures that the exchange is committed to exploring and developing innovative ways to finance the nation's transport infrastructure in order to accelerate the growth of the key sectors of the Nigerian economy. Report says Nigeria requires $750 billion in the next 30 years to address transport infrastructure deficit. Well, the Lagos International Trade Fair has come to a close with renewed calls for patronage of made in Nigerian goods. Well, the 10-day Lagos International Trade Fair closed on Sunday, November the 12th. The fair featured an exhibition of goods from India, Indonesia, Japan, China, as well as locally made goods from all states in Nigeria. Government officials, members of the organized private sector, exhibitors, local and foreign, commended the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry for a successful outing despite the present economic realities.
We will hope to hear from participants what their comments are, because it is that will help us to work for next year. But on our own, we try to put a lot of things in place to assist our exhibitors and participants. Even the Lagos State Fair that we have, trade pavilion that we have visited, I'm quite impressed. The Lagos State government gave the small-scale people opportunity to display. You want to get business, come to the trade fair and let people know what you produce.
First of all, some of them are already making inroads into the market. But I those making shoes already. If you see the middle. In fact, you think that you are buying an imported shoes. From what I've seen inside there, and many of them are already saying that they're already exporting, and I think that is impressive. So what the government needs to do more is to provide necessary incentives for them to facilitate, to enable them export more, so that we can hand foreign exchange. And I think Lagos State is committed to that, and I think the federal government is also planning along that line too, and we will continue to guide the federal government along that line as well.
Well, the next trade fair will be 2018, God willing. Well, Katsina State Governor Aminu Masari has presented a budget of 211.49 billion naira to the State House of Assembly. He called it the budget of actualization. The proposal has 3/4 of the total budget allocated to capital spending. Education, which is one of the 6 priority areas, was allocated 20% of the budget. Other priority areas are agriculture, water resources, roads, and health. The proposal is 71 billion naira more than the 2017 budget.
The total budget for 2018 fiscal year is in the sum of 211 billion 497 million 191,095 naira, with 75.7% capital expenditure and 24.3% recurrent expenditure. In aggregate terms, the 2018 budget is higher than that of 2017 by 71,335,098,405 naira. The 2018 budget is structured with a total recurrent expenditure of 51 409,821,610 naira, which is equivalent to 24.3% of the total budget, and the capital expenditure of 160,087,369,485 naira, which is 75.7% of the total budget.
Nigeria's Minister of Trade and Industry says his ministry is working on making Nigeria the preferred investment destination in Africa. Okechukwu Nelama was in Sokoto for the Ninth National Council on Trade, Industry, Trade and Investments. And his host, Sokoto State Governor Aminu Tambuwal, reinforces that his government is making big investments in agriculture.
To diversify the state economy, a strategic investment plan, SIP, has been worked out and will be implemented through a special purpose vehicle under the management of the Sokoto Investment Company, tagged Sokoto Investment House. The house will operate as an independent corporate body with all the power to enter into agreement, partnership, engage and participate in all aspects of market activities. As a conglomerate company, it will seek to support, give incentive and guide businesses that will especially guarantee reliable inputs and raw materials for improved processing.
Given the central role of industry, trade and investment to the priorities of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, the ministry has been working tirelessly with relevant stakeholders to drive the implementation of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. We are focused on creating the right enabling environment to attract industry, trade and investment into our country and within the country for enhanced economic growth and diversification.
I think that we require in industry, trade and investment, we need a conducive business environment. But investors need more than a conducive business environment. They also need information and they need transparency.
Well, from Sokoto State now, crude oil prices dipped at the global market on Monday as major dealers apply brakes. Now the London market, the Brent crude trades at $63 per barrel. For the OPEC basket brand, price steadies at $61 per barrel in mid-day bargains. Well, we do apologize for not bringing live feeds from the Nigerian stock market due to some technical issues, but we'll bring you up to speed with the closing figures at the news of 4. Well, that's a wrap on the show for today. Join us tomorrow, God willing, for another incisive and, of course, topical and discussional and analysis focusing on the business world. I'll leave you with the figures of the exchange rate as it stands today. On behalf of the entire production crew, thank you very much for watching. I am Tolu Lokpe Ogunjobi.